I'd like to call to order the January 10th meeting of the Montgomery County Planning Commission. If the Secretary would determine a quorum, please.
Sir, Commissioner Kroll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Sharp Robinson. Ms. Simpkins.
Here.
Commissioner Waltz.
Here.
Workman. Here. Linkus is here. Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Chair Rice.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's see, prior to the approval of the agenda, the Chair would like to recognize Supervisor Todd King, who has been appointed by the Board of Supervisors as the board's liaison for this year. And Mr. King, would you like to say a few words?
I'm Todd King. I'm the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors, representing District D. I've been appointed as the Board of Supervisors liaison for the Planning Commission this year. I know the role of the Planning Commission is to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on a day-to-day planning issues. I also know the Commission helps guide the county on long-range planning and growth. My role as a liaison is to attend Planning Commission meetings, listen to the discussions, and share information from the meetings with my fellow board members. To the best serve the role and to avoid the appearance of being a voting member of the Planning Commission, I plan to sit in the audience with our fellow citizens as I fulfill my duties. I look forward to attending these meetings, and I thank you all for the work you do in serving our community in this capacity. I also would like to thank each one of you personally for everything that you do, and I appreciate your family allowing you the time to do it because it means a lot to the citizens of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. And then as chairman, I'd also like to express the commission's thanks to Supervisor Sarah Bond for her services and liaison over the past several years. And then I have a note to remind the commissioners that when you speak, to speak into the mic. Now that we're being videotaped, it helps to record the sound as well. So make sure that the light is off when you speak and speak into the mic. Approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, likewise. And so then we move into public hearing. We have a request by Ray Bolin Estate, Sharon Dalton Bolin, for a special use permit to allow a manufactured home on a vacant lot located within the R3 residential zoning district. The property is located at the intersection of Fire Tower Road and Radford Road. The property is further identified as tax map 090-101, parcel ID 170194. It's 0.483 acres, zone residential R3 in the Reiner Magisterial District. The property currently lies in an area designated as Village Expansion in the 2025 Comprehensive Plan and is further designated as Medium Density Residential in the Plum Creek Village Plan. And the chair recognizes Ms. Wright.
Hi, good evening. As Chair Rice said, we have a special use permit for a manufactured home in an R3 residential district. Here are the vicinity maps. You can see the star on the left map. It's in the Plum Creek area towards the city of Radford limits. And the map on the right shows a more exact location. The map on the left shows the aerial photo of the property, and that also shows the flood hazard area that has been determined by FEMA. The map on the right shows the various different zonings that are surrounding the parcel, including manufacturing, agricultural, general business, and residential R3 properties. This property is located on the intersection of Fire Tower Road and Radford Road. The parcel is approximately 0.482 acres and is zoned residential R3. The applicant seeks to place a single-wide manufactured home on the vacant lot. As we know, single-wides and double-wides are permitted only by special use permit in the R3 district. The other manufactured homes in the area predate the current zoning ordinance. This is the site plan provided by the applicant showing the location of the proposed dwelling and driveway with the decks and porches and its proximity to the flood zone. As you can see on the aerial, it is quite a distance away from the flood hazard area. Photos of the property show, the one on the left shows the flood hazard area. The one on the right shows going up the hill going up Fire Tower Road. The photo on the left shows from the parcel looking down toward Plum Creek and the intersection with Radford Road. And the photo on the right shows the creek that creates the flood hazard area. The photo on the left shows the intersection of Fire Tower Road, and the photo on the right shows Fire Tower Road going up adjacent to the parcel. The applicant proposes that the driveway connection will be on Fire Tower Road. VDOT has reviewed that and has taken no exception to the proposed request. The site will be served by public water and sewer as provided by the PSA, and the connections will be made after requirements of the building permits that will be issued. A 30-foot utility easement exists on the property above and in partiality in the flood zone, but again, the dwelling site is not to be in the utility easement. A portion of the property is located in the FEMA zone, but not near. A full review of all erosion and sediment control and stormwater requirements will be completed before permit issuance. The school's impacts will be limited and no impact is anticipated as it will be just one dwelling. Comprehensive plan, village expansion areas are intended to provide an alternative to scatter rural residential development. And this proposed project meets the comprehensive plan, as well as some of the planning and land use items in the comprehensive plan in the Plum Creek Village. The property is identified as medium density in the Plum Creek Village, and several policies support this development, as seen here. The proposed manufactured home is a viable use for a vacant parcel. It aligns with uses on neighboring properties that also consist of manufactured homes. This use provides the property owner a more affordable alternative than stick-built construction and will generate limited impacts. The proposed project places minimal additional burdens on existing infrastructure, and it generates minimal noise or traffic. As a reminder, staff intends to review the possibility of allowing by right development of manufactured homes in the upcoming zoning ordinance rewrite. This will be reevaluated, this need for a special use permit. Staff recommends approval of the special use permit to allow the manufactured home on the property with the following conditions. Only one manufactured home shall be allowed on the property in association with this special use permit. And all permits from other agencies must be provided to the zoning administrator prior to approval of the required site plan and issuance of subsequent county permits. Adjoining property owners were notified in accordance with code. Public hearing sign was placed on the property and the legal ads were properly published. Staff has received no inquiries relating to the request, but comments may be received during the public hearing. Do any of you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Wright? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is the applicant here? Would they like to speak? Applicant? At this time, we will open the floor for public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to this matter, please come forward. And seeing none, we will move to discussion amongst the commissioners.
Seems pretty straightforward to me. I mean, I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve and a second. You want a roll call vote, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Secretary, if you would, please.
Yeah, Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins,
Yes.
Mr. Waltz,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Secretary votes yes, Vice Chair Foster,
Yes.
and Chair Rice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Our second public hearing is a request by Shaw Development LLC, agent for Site Design Services, to amend the proffered conditions approved as part of the rezoning of the property located at 3966 Price Fork Road, originally approved by the Board of Supervisors on February the 11th, 2019. The property is located at 3966 Prices Fork Road, at the intersection of Prices Fork Road and Kyle's Way. The property is further identified as tax map number 052-A-32A, which is parcel 017475, totaling 1.5 acres. Currently zoned community business in the Prices Fork Ministerial District. And I recognize Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Chair Rice. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. So as Mr. Rice mentioned, we have a request for a proffer amendment to an existing rezoning. This is your vicinity map. Just to orient you, this is located in the northwestern portion of the county, outside the town limits of the town of Blacksburg, in the Prices Fork Village. The zoom in on your right shows you its location within the Prices Fork Village. And again, just to orient you, this is the West Hill development here. Kyle's Way goes back through, and this is the former M&M Tire parcel located on Prices Fork Road. Here's your aerial map. It shows the existing M&M Tire building, which has since been raised from the site. Again, just to orient you, North Star Church is across Prices Fork Road. And if you'll remember back last year, we did some work here on this parcel to do the model home for the Preserve at Walnut Springs and a subsequent residential structure, again, just to further orient you. You'll notice on the map on the right, this is your zoning map. What you see in yellow there, that is planned unit development residential for the Preserve at Walnut Springs, and then across the road, the West Hill development. And then the surrounding parcels are agriculture A1. And then the subject parcel is identified as community business. And again, that had those proffered conditions when that was approved back in 2019. At the time when that rezoning was done, there was one proffered condition that limited the use to automotive, light truck sales, service, rental, and repair without motor fuel sales in a building that was less than 2,000 square feet. When the rezoning was done in 2019, the idea was to align the zoning designation with the current use of the parcel for that automobile service establishment. At the time, other uses were not considered due to the potential impacts on traffic in the transportation network. That business has subsequently closed and the property was acquired by its current owner, Shaw Development. The building, as I mentioned, has already been raised from the site, and the applicant wishes to amend the proffered conditions but retain that community business zoning designation to allow more flexibility in the permitted uses on the site. The applicant currently doesn't have a specific identified use for the site, but again is seeking that flexibility to be able to determine a future use. You'll notice in the proffered conditions that we're going to go through in just a moment, they've listed several potential uses that would be allowed by right if approved. The applicant has also added several proffered conditions that address concerns about future development of the parcel. So on the proffer statement, they listed these allowable uses being proposed. I will note that that first use there seems very familiar because that was the original proffer. However, they've stricken the square footage requirement that was associated with the original proffered condition and then added this list of permitted uses in their proposal. You can see there are a variety of uses there. Many of them are professional services and smaller businesses that would fit with the scale of the village. The additional proffers that have been proposed, again, are addressing some of the aesthetic and potential traffic concerns of these uses. The first there is that they would provide street trees along Price's Fork Road at a rate of 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage. The building itself would be allowed to be a maximum of 2 stories in height. The main structure would front Price's Fork Road, and the main entrance shall front Price's Fork Road. Any proposed lighting shall have full cutoff downcast luminaires, and the overall lighting design shall be dark sky friendly, and any sign that's placed on the property would be a monument sign. So here's the proposed site plan. I'll point out a few specifics for you. Again, the street trees that are being provided along Price's Fork Road. Again, the building has already been demolished. The addition of a sidewalk along Price's Fork Road, the utilization of an existing entrance onto the property along Price's Fork Road, and then the proposed buffer yards that buffer between the commercial development and the PUD res development for the preserve at Walnut Springs. That already adjoins the common space area, so there's already a natural buffer there within the development, but this is an additional buffer that would be created in alignment with the zoning ordinance. And then a buffer here between the commercial development and that model home that was constructed, which eventually will revert to residential. Here are some site images that were taken after the building was taken down. This is looking back toward Blacksburg. Again, that's that model unit that was constructed. You can see the topographic change down to the open space area, down to the preserve at Walnut Springs, and then here's the frontage along Price's Fork Road. This is the area where that buffer would be constructed between the model home and the commercial development. Then again, looking back toward the Price's Fork Village area, Price's Fork Elementary here in the distance, you can see that existing entrance on the parcel. You can see again that curb cut's already there to allow access to the parcel, and this is looking back toward Blacksburg on Price's Fork. So due to no specific use being identified, the property really does need to be analyzed for any of those potential by right uses that are being proposed in the proffer letter. With such a wide variety of uses being proposed, it is very difficult for staff to determine what the potential traffic impacts would be with the information that's been provided. That existing entrance along Price's Fork Road would remain, and a new sidewalk would be constructed. And an entrance, if it was added onto Kyle's Way, which again is not shown on the concept plan, but if that change were to occur, it could potentially trigger a traffic impact analysis due to the amount of volume that's coming out of the subdivision already. VDOT has reviewed the proposed proffer amendment and took no exception to the proposal. However, they did note that an evaluation of the site entrance and whether a traffic impact analysis would be determined once a specific use had been selected by the developer. The site is already served by public water and sewer provided by the PSA. It does not lie within a FEMA designated flood zone, and we would look at all erosion and sediment control and stormwater management requirements during the review of any permits for the property. As a specific use has not been identified, additional environmental impacts are unknown at this time, but would be evaluated at the time of permitting. The property is located within an area designated as village expansion in the comprehensive plan. These are the areas that we would like to see residential and commercial development occurring within the county, so it is compliant with the comprehensive plan. These are your policy goals, talking about that mix of residential, non-residential uses within the village expansion areas, as well as a policy goal that any new development that occurs within the village would be in harmony with the existing development patterns of the village. The Prices Fork Village Plan also addresses several policy goals for new development. The ideal type of commercial development that we see in the village area for Prices Fork would be these goods and services being provided to local residents. There's a discussion about local and small businesses within the village, ensuring that the architectural and historic character of the village is respected through any new development, ensuring that access points to roads are coordinated. In addition, the signage should be small scale, traditional, and in keeping with the rural character of the village, and landscaping should be considered in relationship to residential uses that are adjacent to the property. And as I outlined on the concept plan, a number of these goals have been addressed by the applicant through their proffered conditions. They allow, the proffered conditions that have been proposed by the applicant allow more variety of uses for the parcel, and would many of those would complement existing uses that are located within the village. However, as I noted, it is very difficult for us to predict those impacts without a specified use. Those impacts are transportation, environmental, and infrastructure impacts that are really going to be dependent on the type of development that is chosen for the parcel. As a result, all by right uses should be considered as potential development options, since the applicant has not identified a specific use. Staff does have concerns related to traffic impacts, adjoining local parcel connectivity, orientation of parking spaces, architectural design, and potential connectivity to Kyle's Way. The applicant has stated some by right uses in their proffer statement, but any special use permit use that would be permitted would have to go through that regular SUP process if it was selected. The proffers that have been presented by the applicant do align with the comprehensive plan and the Prices Fork Village Plan, and again would require a submission of all permits, at which time the full impacts could be evaluated. So based on the information that's been provided, staff is unable to make a recommendation at this time. We're not saying no, we're not saying yes, we just don't have enough information to make a recommendation due to the traffic, environmental, and aesthetic impacts that could result from development. We simply just have too many questions that are remaining. Adjoining property owners were notified in accordance with Montgomery County Code and the Code of Virginia. A public hearing sign was placed on the property and legal ads were run in the News Messenger. We have not received any inquiries related to this request, but we may have comments this evening at the public hearing. And with that, I will take any questions that you have.
Any questions? Mr. Sanders?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did M&M Tire just relocate or go out of business?
If they did relocate.
Relocated? Okay. Okay, I just wondered if that would be a likely. Okay, thank you.
Justin?
Yes, Mr. Rice.
This list, on the proffer statement, the list, are these all uses that is contained within the community business zoning?
That's correct. What the applicant has done is they took that existing list of by right uses and then they edited that list down, taking out certain uses that would not be compatible with the parcel size or for their vision for the property going forward.
As far as you know, they didn't add uses that's not consistent with community business?
No, sir. No uses were added that are not already in that existing
Taken out.
list.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
We do have the applicant's agent, John Neal from Foresight Design Services. He has a brief presentation for you, and then Mr. Connor is here from Shaw Development if you have questions for him.
Sounds great, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Appreciate your all's time this evening. I do have a brief presentation, but I think Justin covered a lot of what we've proposed, and I hope you've been able to read the full staff report that he had. There's a lot of good information in there. We are proposing a proffer amendment to the old M&M Tire parcel. I want a little bit of background. It was previously zoned agriculture, and so this is the M&M tire parcel that's operated for a large number of years as it's zoned agriculture as an auto repair shop. The preserve at Walnut Springs was approved as a PUD residential behind it. And at that time, when we were working through a lot of stuff and we were doing some boundary line adjustments between the M&M tire parcel and the preserve at Walnut Springs, and working through the new entrance to the preserve at Walnut Springs that goes by what was formerly M&M Tire, we rezoned to community business and kept it as a proffer at that time because the understanding and the belief was that M&M Tire was just going to kind of operate in perpetuity. And so that worked for everybody at the time. Over the last several years, M&M Tire has moved on and relocated. Mr. Hagan purchased the property because it is fronting our preserve at Walnut Springs subdivision. And then in looking at it with this proffer, we wanted to open it up for more opportunities for community business. And so as you can see, the zoning right now is community business. We've got the PUD around it, and then the Virginia Tech property to the left there, North Star Church down in front of us, and then the model homes for Eagle, who are constructing houses in the preserve at Walnut Springs. And then here's just a little bit of the existing layout. That building, as we said, and as Justin mentioned, it's been demolished, and we do have a vacant site right now. We are proposing those buffers that Justin talked about to preserve some buffer space, but we also have the buffer space that is the open space for the preserve as well. One of the key things that we are proposing and showing are the proposed street trees along that. If you can recall, way back when, M&M Tire had a pretty wide entrance, and so people were able to come and go. And part of the reason for that was because the building was so close to the street. They needed the ability to access and maneuver and things like that, and that worked out fine for M&M. But now when we're talking about some other type of community business, we'll narrow that down to the existing entrance the way it is being constructed with the turn lane and add in those street trees. And Mr. Rice, you asked about the community business uses. All of the uses that we are proposing are within the existing community business zoning district as it stands today. And we have actually struck some additional uses. So this is a smaller list than is allowed in community business right now. And there are none that are not allowed in community business right now. So one of the questions was transportation and traffic. I think that's one of the things that the staff has kind of got them to the point of, hey, we don't feel like we can quite recommend this for approval because they do have questions about kind of what things might happen. One of the things I want to point out and make note of is that VDOT took no exception. So VDOT is kind of in charge of Price's Fork Road. They took no exceptions to this rezoning request, and their approval will be required during the site plan stage. So when we get to the point of working with some business owner to put a building there and parking and a new business, things like that, we'll have to go through the site plan process, get it approved by the planning department. Bree and Justin with Montgomery County will have to get the entrance approved by VDOT. And if you read through the staff report, Jesse Miller with VDOT makes a pretty important point that says, very specifically says, any change of use. So in other words, if we did not go back with a automobile repair sales, 2,000 square feet or less, no motor fuel sales, then the access and the entrances and stuff are all up for review by both VDOT and the county. So anything we do, anything we propose is going to have to go through that specific regulations for both VDOT and Montgomery County. We think that provides the necessary requirements and limitations to prevent any issues that might happen on Price's Fork Road. Like I said, I specifically highlighted this. And it says, once the exact use of the property is known, it will be determined then if any kind of traffic analysis is required. And one of the things when we were talking with Bree and going back and forth with staff was we couldn't really do a traffic analysis on the worst case scenario because then that would potentially then, if we came to you with that traffic analysis, you then might want us to proffer additional entrance stuff that then when we decided to use and put in a garden center, those two things didn't align, and then we'd be coming back to you again to change those proffers. So we were kind of in a circular discussion there, and that's the reason we've decided to move forward as we have. But very specifically, we will still have to go through VDOT approval for this. And our additional proffers, I won't go over that. I think Justin read them all to you. So I want to leave you with just one thing, one final thought. Price's Fork has been designated as a village. It's one of the villages of Montgomery County. And, the main street of the Price Fork community is Price's Fork Road. And we think pretty clearly that community business is an appropriate zoning district along the main street of the Price's Fork Village. And certainly we would pursue that type of business. We know in the comp plan it talks about kind of some of those aspirations for locally owned and serving the residents of the communities. We'll certainly try to do that. But for the question we're talking about today, community business belongs on the main street of the village. And that's what we've proposed. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You may have the same question, so, just one question. When the Preserve at Walnut Springs planned housing development was first planned and thought out, if a community business was needed or desired, why wasn't it included in the original plan, like right where the model home is, and have an entrance? I mean, because to me, there's an entrance here and an entrance here and one on the other side of the street. So why wasn't did it just become an afterthought when this property became available?
Well, so all of those properties, M&M Tire and these properties were all owned by the same property owner. So we did not, Preserve at Walnut Springs did not own those properties.
But you
They
had road
purchased them-
frontage right there, and you could have had a community
They
business.
purchased them later and put the model homes there. And M&M Tire was operating, existing operations.
So my question is, if you're designing to have a community business now, is it only because that property became available and it wasn't a thought of originally in your design? Because now it just seems like you're trying to make it fit.
Well, I think we're looking at it as what now as we have this entrance here into the Preserve at Walnut Springs, what might actually fit there. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. It's a 1.5 acre parcel. And Eagle was looking to present some of their same type of things of selling their business, which was constructing homes, and having model homes, which is an office and a place to showcase some of their business. Absolutely. Does that answer your question?
Kind of, yeah, thank you.
Maybe a question for Bree. That was a separate SUP for M&M Tire, correct? Because it was a different owner,
Correct.
went through that. So we did address that, and that's when the proffer came up that they're asking to change tonight, if my memory, is that correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
that came through as a separate special use permit request, not special use permit, rezoning request to bring the property into compliance. Because they were doing some property switching to get some entrance and property and that type of thing. It was rezoned. The rezoning limited it to that use because, one, at that time, they thought it would always be M&M Tire, but also because any additional use would require a traffic impact analysis. That was also impacted by the traffic that was going to be using Kyle's Way for the Preserve at Walnut Springs. So one of the reasons why it was limited was due to those questions about traffic and the ability. So they limited it to the existing use. So then they could rework the existing entrance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Neal,
Yes, sir.
a couple of minor questions. Looking at the diagram that you have up right now, approximately how far from the start of the turn lane is it to the entrance to the property? And then the second question is, how wide is that entrance?
So let me make sure I understand what you're talking about, this entrance here.
Yes, sir.
So this is about, let me go to another sheet if I can.
Just eyeball it. looks like about 100 feet. And the entrance might be 20, 25 feet?
Probably slightly more than 100 feet from the edge of the property, and the
Okay.
start of the turn lane is close to the edge of the property. And the entrance width would be 30 to 40 feet.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Additional questions?
Speaking of the entrance, yeah, I've got one. I like proposed street trees. I mean, that's always good. But to me, if that's a proffer, my assumption would be that we would want to encourage future development to entrance off of Price's Fork. Will it be reviewed during site plan? Because to me, I just see visibility issues with trees right next to your entrance. And so I would want to encourage, so I'm almost saying I would want to take out the proposed street trees because I don't really consider much of an impact to Price's Fork Road as needing a buffer, but I would rather encourage a full site plan entrance from Price's Fork Road and not Kyle's Way. Does that make sense?
Right. So one of the things with the street trees, we've shown them kind of relatively evenly spaced. They don't necessarily have to be like that.
Okay.
So they could all kind of be pushed further up towards the start of the turn lane or down towards the intersection to kind of create a I hate to use this word, a grove. It's not really a grove
Right.
with 5 trees or 6 trees, but those can be rearranged. We just showed them as far as an illustration is concerned. We would absolutely try to make sure, or we would make sure that we don't have any kind of sight distance issues or
Yeah.
anything like that.
So would that need to be, if it's a proffer, will they have to plant the street trees before you sell or find a different use for the property? I'm just
No.
saying, I don't want you to plant trees and then we come in and VDOT's like, oh, you got to move all these trees.
No, those would just be part of the overall site plan
Okay.
when the time came.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
And with the applicant, Mr. Connor? Okay. And so we will open up the floor for public hearing. Anyone who would like to address this issue? Please come forward. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And open it up to the commission.
Okay, so as a member of the Prices Fork community and somebody that's appreciative of community business, small business, I cannot support this project right now. One, because I support our staff that's not ready to okay the project either, for reasons. I also can't support it because VDOT did a D about, and that's been problematic. And the preserve only has one main entrance in and out, and only a portion of the homes have been built. And there's large concern from that subdivision, as well as the West Hill subdivision in terms of the traffic. I think it's nice that you want to do trees. You'd be the only trees on Price's Fork Road, which could be a hindrance to vision. That used to be a really bad spot in the road anyway. A sidewalk, you're offering a sidewalk to nowhere. There is no other sidewalk pictured, I don't believe. None of the other developments had to do it. And I actually like to tag on to what Ms. Simpkins said as well. You had 2 other properties, Eagle Construction Home, that you could have built something for the community there, and you chose to put 2 model homes, which is a good thing too. It's not a bad thing. But I would like for us to seriously consider deferring until later and until the business has made a decision as to what they really want to build. Then we can more effectively assess whether VDOT needs to do a site analysis or not. As a customer of M&M Tire and living in Price's Fork, having that one entrance as it is right now, and I'm not great on measurement without being out there looking at it, but M&M had part of it be a big way, a big entrance on 2 sides because of traffic on Price's Fork Road. And having it set up like it is, I think, could be problematic. I don't know, and I would like for us to know what the business is going to be and just have some more specifics. So, that's my thoughts.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Now, thank you. I recall, I guess 20 years ago when we were developing the village plan, that a number of folks from the Prices Fork community came forward and they rather specifically expressed their interest in preserving the nature of the village. I don't recall the term Main Street as having been a part of that discussion. I do recall that they were concerned with the history, which is a long history in our county of that community, and preservation of historic properties. I am reluctant to offer the developer carte blanche to put whatever they may choose on that property. And I, like Ms. Sharp Robinson, would prefer that we look at it at a later time with more specifics.
I'm a little concerned with waiting, is that as it stands right now, it's a vacant lot. And of course, we're the planning commissions, we're supposed to kind of guide. And community business is what we sort of, with our comprehensive plan, we said this is the community business area. And so they're proffering that they're going to build community business, what's allowed in community business. Right now, the only way they could market the property is for a service station, because that's what the proffer is, that it can only be a tire center or service station. And it's hard to market that property to another business when you can say, well, all you can do is this. And so I think it needs to be, we need to open it up and kind of, guide what we want by using the community business zonings that we have in place. And it's got, all of these uses are within the community business.
So I would speak to that, to say, let the community have a voice in what that will be. Mr. Miller brought up that the village of Prices Fork has a very strong voice of community and the local villages surrounding it. And I think that they would like to have a voice of what would be there as well, versus us giving carte blanche and pre-approving anything for them to do it. So I would suggest they come forward with their plan of what they want it to do. I don't want to restrict the builder. I understand what you're saying too, but I think more information can come forward before we have to make a decision.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just weigh in, I guess my perspective might be a little bit more in line with your thinking, in that from the staff report and my evaluation of the application, the proposal is consistent with the comp plan. The traffic question will be addressed during site plan review. So it's not necessarily giving carte blanche to them doing whatever they want without any type of controls or oversight to make sure what's being proposed is consistent with the rules and requirements in the ordinances for developing that parcel. So I think that even though there are not specifics about what's being proposed, it is consistent with the village plan and the comp plan, and the traffic question will be addressed. If the proposed use creates traffic that triggers an analysis, then the developer will have to hire the appropriate professionals to conduct traffic analysis and either make the improvements or not be able to proceed with that particular proposed use. So from that perspective, I think they do meet the requirements of our obligation to evaluate the application and the proposal with respect to the proposed land use and consistency with the comp plan, with the protection that's provided to the county for addressing traffic in accordance with the VDOT requirements. Also, the environmental considerations, I think, are also covered by numerous ordinances for developing property anywhere in the county, regardless of what it's owned. So from that perspective, I'm in support of the application.
Any other comments? I will say, the way the community decides is through that comprehensive plan process, and we came together as a community and drafted the village plan, and the community business is part of that village plan. So that's how the community has put their input in and said, this is what we want. We want this community business, we want these uses within our village plan. And so I think that by them proffering these uses that are in the community business, I think we are following the will of the people. But I'll entertain a motion one way or the other.
I make a motion that we table this vote till later date.
Okay.
when?
So to table
Yes, so for that, we will need a specific time. So are we,
reason.
and the reason, are we deferring it until next meeting, until they can see if there's more specifics they can provide? Are we,
Until they can provide more specifics to what the uses would be of the property.
I don't know if that's possible
Can we not?
Yeah, without us.
until they know what. Yeah,
I'm not really in favor of postponing it without if we're waiting on specific information, then I'm okay with postponing it, but to just postpone it, to try to kill it, I don't know if that's what should be doing, but we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Secretary, I guess it's, we'll call roll call on that motion. The motion is to postpone it, and did you give a time limit until next meeting?
Bree,
so we will the Planning Commission has to make a recommendation within the next 90 to 100 days to the Board of Supervisors.
okay. So,
And that recommendation can either be to approve the request or to deny the request.
Ms. Hopkins, why are you saying 90 to 100 days?
It's state code.
State code, okay.
I think it's also county code.
Okay, so the motion before us is to postpone, I'm still waiting for it until next month, next meeting.
I'll change my recommendation then. Can I change that? Okay. So I would propose that we deny the request at this time until the property owner has a more concise determinant of what the use of the facility, of what the area might be. Is that?
We have a motion. And I will second. Second that motion. Okay, so we have a motion for denial. Denial of the. Any further
Is
comments?
there discussion on the motion?
Please.
So if the motion is approved to deny the application, does that mean that the applicant has to wait a year before they can resubmit? Or since this is a amendment to an SUP to revise the proffers, does that year apply?
So it's actually an amendment to the proffer, so it's handled just like a rezoning. So if the Board of Supervisors accepts the recommendation by the Planning Commission and they deny the rezoning request, then they would have to wait a year to submit the same application. They can submit another application that is substantially different. So let's say they marketed the property and had someone who wanted to use it for one of the uses that they stated, then they could come back with new proffers for that use and a concept plan, that type of thing. So that would be a substantial change to their previous request. But to come back for the same request, they would have to wait that year. And that's if the board denies it.
But, and this is maybe a Marty question, their proposal is to remove the proffer. So how can their new request be substantially different without simply removing that proffer?
So they're not removing the proffer, they're adding additional uses to that proffer and then adding the other proffers that they have submitted.
So they could propose a new amendment, and let's say I struck 2 of the proposed community business items. This is all hypothetical. I'm just trying to, I don't want to limit, a year long with some technicality for these developers or for that community business, because quite honestly, a nicely built facility fits in the community, looks better than a blanket parking lot right now. And that's where I'm at, and understanding that all of the traffic and environmental is going to be reviewed with whatever is proposed on here. I can't support to delay it, is where I'm at.
So the motion is to deny the request, and I've got a second. Any further discussion? Let me ask the question. If we deny this motion, then do we have to have an affirmative motion to approve it?
No. So if you take a vote on this motion, and let's say the motion fails, you can report that to the board that there was a motion to recommend denial, however it failed on a X to Y vote, whatever that, correct, Marty?
Then it would take another motion to approve if someone wants to do that.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
If you wanted to recommend approval, you could do another motion and take another vote.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Are we ready for a vote?
I want clarification. If we say yes, it means we're agreeing to deny it. A yes is,
That's correct.
A vote yes now is for recommendation of denial.
okay.
But the applicant can come back before a year with more specifics to have the opportunity to express what they would like the property to be. And then the county could also give the recommendation to approve it. Because right now, even the county is not approving it as it is right now, correct?
When you say the county, are you speaking to staff?
To staff, yes.
So staff did not make a recommendation because we feel we did not have enough information.
Correct.
There are still several questions that staff had, such as where would the building be located on the property? Where would parking be located? What architectural style would the building be? Would it be metal? Would it be vinyl? Would it be brick? Would it be a mixture? And then, of course, the traffic impacts. VDOT will review this at site plan review and determine if any improvements are necessary. If there are a couple of different options for improvements, at that point, the county has no say-so as to what those improvements would be. It would be up to the developer and VDOT. So if there are a couple of options, we would have to go with what the developer and VDOT agreed with. We would not have any inputs to that.
And to confirm, Kyle's Way is the only way in and out of that current subdivision, which
That is
will be
correct.
500 individual
That is
homes.
correct. Any entrance that they propose onto Kyle's Way would require a new traffic impact analysis for Kyle's Way for a couple of reasons. One, just due to the traffic count, but there's also a proffered condition on Kyle's Way that limits the amount of traffic. And once they reach a certain traffic count, they have to have a TIA.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And clarification, if we vote in the affirmative to deny this, it still goes before the Board of Supervisors.
That is correct.
Correct, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
everything that Ms. Hopkins enumerated, we will have no control over. Just clarification. Thank you.
We're ready for a vote? So we're voting on the motion to deny the rezoning.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Kroll,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sharp Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins,
Yes.
Mr. Waltz,
No.
Mr. Workman,
No.
Secretary votes no. Mr. Foster,
No.
Chair Rice,
No.
and motion fails.
Is that 6-3?
Motion fails on a 6-3 vote.
So I understand now if we want to approve it, we would need to have a new motion? Do we want?
Mr. Chair, I have a question. If, since the applicant has proffered voluntarily the proffers that are included in the application, at what point could they potentially be amended to add a proffer, for instance, to elaborate more on the aesthetics of a future building on the property, regardless of that particular use, but to put language in the proffer statement to indicate some consistency with the character of the neighborhood, so it limits the potential for a metal building without any type of aesthetic appeal along a major visible route in the village.
So we can accept proffer amendments up to the Board of Supervisors' public hearing. We generally suggest that they get them to us at least a week before, so that a way they can be reviewed by the county attorney to make sure that they are legal, and we can accept those, but we can accept them at least a week before.
Well, I certainly think addressing that concern with the voluntary proffers might make it a little bit more definitive on addressing some of the current concerns that have been expressed by.
Yes, I will also note, if they do desire to amend any of the conditions and the proffers, once that goes to the Board of Supervisors, the board can refer that back to the Planning Commission for additional review.
So I'm also a little confused about it. Would there need to be another vote since that failed, another vote? Or is it implicit that if the vote to deny it failed, then the recommendation is to move forward recommending approval? Or do we need a formal vote to?
You need another motion to approve.
Could I ask the question to staff? So along Price Fork Road, we have other community business zoning as well? Do we have down across from the old school, is that community business?
Virginia Tech.
The church?
That's Virginia Tech property, that's zoned to agriculture. I do not think you have any community business until you get down around Snuffy's and the Gator Mart.
Okay. So down there, when somebody wants to build something, do they have to bring the building location and color and so forth to the Planning Commission as well, or?
If it was something they would have to request a rezoning or a special use permit for, then we would definitely evaluate that in terms of the comprehensive plan. If it was by right, there is not anything in the zoning ordinance that would require that.
Okay.
So by then, they are only functioning by code.
And so
And
with-
part of that is to remember the comprehensive plan is your guiding document, so it's how you want property to develop long-term. So as properties develop, you want those properties to develop in terms of your comprehensive plan, and that's why we use that as our guiding document for our rezonings and our special use permits.
So are we going to report that the previous motion just failed and leave it at that, or do you want to make a motion in the affirmative?
I'll make a motion to approve with the proffers submitted.
Second.
So I've got a motion and a second. So traffic, the way I understand it, traffic is going to be looked at again, maybe not from us, but by VDOT, and VDOT controls the roads anyway.
Correct. So VDOT would evaluate it based on use at site plan approval. And then VDOT and the applicant would work out any traffic issues, what would be needed.
Stormwater entrances on Kyle, all of that's going to be looked at again.
Stormwater will be looked at by Department of Environmental Services, yes.
So the only thing that we're kind of giving up control of is the color of the building, materials on the building. Is that what we're?
That we have a specific comprehensive plan goal that all parking will be to the side or to the rear, not in front of Price's Fork, facing Price's Fork Road. So definitely appearance, aesthetics, and then while we are saying we're not giving up anything on traffic because it will be looked at, there might be a couple of options there. So perhaps if you increased a turn lane, it would achieve the same as doing a right in, right out. Well, at that point, the county has no say into how they mitigate that traffic impact. That is between the applicant and VDOT.
But also, at this point, if the county does not approve, one could potentially put up a metal building service station by right, because that's the only by right that's
It would be
currently
limited to the concept plan that was approved as part of the rezoning.
Right.
And it would be that automotive no more than 2,000 square feet. The other thing to remember, this concept plan that is before you is not being proffered. So while you're looking at this concept plan is not proffered. So when it's developed, it would be developed by whatever proffered conditions are in writing, and then the by right uses, and it would not necessarily be developed according to the plan in front of you.
Well, the plan in front of us is just a vacant lot. I mean, right? We don't have a plan, we just have a vacant lot.
Correct.
That was my point.
Okay, so any other comments? So we have a motion to approve and a second. Secretary, would you like to call the roll?
Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Sharp Robinson,
No.
Ms. Simpkins,
No.
Mr. Waltz,
Yes.
Mr. Workman,
Yes.
Secretary votes yes. Chair Foster,
Vice Chair Foster's yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Chair Rice,
I don't want the promotion.
Chair Rice,
Yes.
motion passes.
So this recommendation will go to the board on the 6-3 vote. We will explain some of the concerns. We will also explain why the motion to approve was. So that way they'll get both sides.
Yeah. Ms. Hopkins, I would like in the report that goes to the board to express some comments about the proffer, that we would like to see some of the proffers address the aesthetics for a building that might be constructed on that parcel.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have the third rezoning request. Request by Shaw Development to rezone 5.57 acres from conservation to planned unit development residential and 21.148 acres from manufacturing to planned unit development residential to allow for the development of up to 88 single-family residential and two-family residential duplex dwellings and 20 single-family attached residential townhome dwellings. The property is located on Halcyons Road, State Route 758, approximately 0.15 miles east of the intersection of Halcyons Road and Brammer Lane. The property is further identified as tax map 080-A46, parcel ID 018437, and it's 13.586 acres, and tax map 080-A44, parcel ID 018441, that's 13.132 acres in the Shawsville Ministerial District. The property lies in an area designated as urban expansion in the 2025 Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan. And Mr. Sanders, please.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. So this rezoning application will look familiar to you. We brought this to you in work session at the end of last year with a different concept. The developer has gone back and revised that original concept to what you have in front of you this evening. But again, just to orient you, the property is located in the central portion of the county, just outside of the town limits of the town of Christiansburg on Halcyons Road. You can see, again, just how close the town boundary really is to the development. Your aerial view here on the left shows you the location of the two parcels. This is Halcyons Road. As you see, Halcyons Road continues back and turns into a private road after it passes the Walnut Creek development. The entrance to Walnut Creek is this road here, Cross Creek Drive, that goes into the development. You'll notice here on your zoning map that most of the surrounding property that is located within the county is zoned A1 agricultural. We do have a planned unit development residential zoning district here for the Walnut Creek development. And then the two parcels are shown here as the M1 manufacturing. You'll notice the small portion here on the property that is C1 conservation. County code requires that any acreage that is brought into the county from the towns automatically gets zoned C1. That's county code. So that's the reason that you have a small portion of the acreage that came in as conservation. That jurisdictional boundary change that brought 5.57 acres from the town of Christiansburg was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2022. As I'm noted, you got an original application package that was received by staff in spring of 2023. At that time, staff deemed the application incomplete. We had more questions about the traffic impacts from that proposal. The applicant then met with staff, VDOT, and the town of Christiansburg to discuss those traffic concerns, particularly at the intersection of Halcyons Road and Roanoke Street. And then we received a revised application from the developer in September of 2023. That request was to rezone the parcels to RM1 multifamily residential to develop up to 199 townhomes. That was reviewed in work session by the commission and on a site visit in October of last year. Following that work session, the applicant resubmitted the application in December, altering the requested zoning designation and unit type and configuration. So the current request that you have before you this evening is a request to rezone the parcels to planned unit development residential to allow the construction of up to 88 single-family and two-family units and then 20 townhomes. The reason that you have that top cap of 88 is to give the developer flexibility once they get onto the site based on market conditions and site topography and issues with developing the property of how many homes they can actually get on the site. So what you'll see when we look at the concept plans is one concept plan that shows all single-family detached, and then a concept plan that shows a mixture of single-family detached and two-family units in addition to those townhomes. The site plan also includes open space, a shared use trail, the mailbox locations, and then other site features. So this is the concept plan, one of the two that was submitted by the developer. You can see here, this is Houchins Road. You have two entrances into the proposed subdivision, one here and then another entrance that aligns with the existing Cross Creek Drive. The streets within the development themselves would be privately maintained by a homeowners association or by the developer. And you can see here, these are all the single-family detached units. These are your townhouse units here on the left. The property here on the eastern property boundary, this is in the town of Christiansburg. You notice the buffer that they are proposing between the two properties there. Here are their stormwater management facilities. You'll notice that they have proposed street trees along Houchins Road, as well as trees within the development. A proposed bus stop location has been identified here along Houchins Road. That would be for Montgomery County Public Schools and any future transit connections that are provided to the property. This property here, this is all currently in a rural land use classification in the comprehensive plan. So that's why you don't see the need for interparcel connectivity. We do not require it with a rural parcel adjacent to the property. Plus there's some topographical challenges here as well. The other thing that I'll note is the all-use trail that's being proposed for recreation through the property and then also through this open space area here. And then when you look at the other proposed concept plan, this is showing where those duplex units are there, again, giving you a mixture of single-family detached and duplexes, but then the townhouse units remain the same in both concept plans, as well as the stormwater management areas and those other site features. Here are some proposed elevations just to give you an idea of what the units would look like. They are proposed to have garages. They have a mixture of materials that are being shown here, a mixture of siding, stone, other wood materials to give it some architectural interest. We do love to fly the drone, so we thought this would give you a good perspective on the property. Again, this is Cross Creek Drive that goes into the Walnut Creek subdivision. This is Houchins Road here, and then you can see how heavily forested the property currently is. Obviously, if approved, a major timbering of the property would need to occur to accommodate the development. And then this is looking back on Houchins Road up toward Walnut Creek. Again, these parcels here that are not in the wooded area, those are also in our urban expansion area, so there is a potential in the future that those parcels could be developed. But then all the adjacent parcels surrounding them are in the rural land use designation, which would not support residential development. Another aerial, this is looking back toward the town of Christiansburg. This is Interstate 81. We got this image so that you could see as Houchins sort of bends around. This is that intersection with Roanoke Street. That was the source of discussion between the developer, VDOT, and the town of Christiansburg with the county. And then here are your images looking back toward Christiansburg from Houchins Road, standing at the edge of the property, and then looking back toward the Walnut Creek subdivision. So when we evaluated the impacts, streets within development, as I mentioned, would be privately maintained. Entrances along Houchins Road have been evaluated by VDOT and meet the minimum site distance requirements. The current average daily trips along Houchins Road is 860 vehicles. Houchins does serve as the sole means of ingress and egress from the Walnut Creek subdivision, other residences along Houchins Road, and the commercial properties that are located off Brammer Lane. There is the future potential for an interparcel connection for the Walnut Creek subdivision to an adjacent parcel, and there is also an emergency access that goes into the Christiansburg Industrial Park for Walnut Creek. However, those two accesses have not been improved and constructed at this time. The addition of up to 108 new residential dwellings will increase traffic along Houchins Road. However, the number of units provided did not reach the threshold for either a county or VDOT mandated traffic impact analysis. The intersection of Houchins Road and Roanoke Street is located completely within the jurisdiction of the town of Christiansburg, and as a result, the town must review and accept any proposed improvements. Construction of the Sheetz convenience store did not require improvements to be made by the intersection by the town of Christiansburg. Currently, the configuration of that intersection is a stop sign controlled intersection with both left and right hand turn movements. The left hand turn movement is currently functioning at a level of service F. The proposed number of units would not increase the number of left turn movements enough to really see a significant increase, and that level of service as a result remains unchanged by the proposal by the developer. When we look at the right turn movements at the intersection, they're currently functioning at a level of service B. And while we would be adding additional traffic to Houchins Road and the intersection, it does not decrease the level of service based on the number of right-hand turn movements. So that would remain at a level of service B. And here's a picture of that intersection as it's currently configured. Sheets is just off the page here to the right. You have the motor mile across the street here, but you can see that that dedicated right turn lane, the dedicated left turn lane, and then the entrance lane here coming off of Roanoke Street. The developer did originally propose to install intersection improvements to eliminate the left turn movement, again, because it was already performing at a level of service F, and then create a right-in, right-out configuration. When that was reviewed by the town of Christiansburg, they expressed several concerns with that. Their first concern was that turning left traffic may route around that improvement to try to turn left anyway, going around the concrete that was installed, and that could increase the chances of a collision from those individuals turning off of Roanoke Street onto Houchins. The town also expressed concern that folks turning right may choose to pass through the Sheets parking lot to avoid the intersection altogether. And they also referenced an ongoing study by the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment on that entire corridor. And they expressed concern that if an improvement was installed, that it could be in conflict with any future development plans that OIP study might identify. I will note that the county has no ability to enforce or require improvements through proffers for intersections that are located within the town of Christiansburg. We could accept a proffer, but there's no way the town could ensure that, or excuse me, the county could ensure that that was done with the town. Looking at infrastructure, the site does have the ability to connect to public water provided by the town of Christiansburg and public sewer services available through the PSA. A full review of infrastructure impacts would be conducted at the site plan submittal stage. The concept plan does identify stormwater maintenance facilities on the site, and as I mentioned, there would be extensive clearing of the existing tree cover to develop the property. However, the developer does intend to preserve as much vegetation where possible along that northern property boundary to provide a buffer. A full review of all erosion and sediment control and stormwater regulations will be conducted at site plan review. We spoke with representatives from Montgomery County Public Schools. Any students that were generated by this development would go into the Christiansburg Strand. You can see there the schools located within the Christiansburg Strand with their capacity and their current enrollment. So MCPS was not concerned that the number of units would generate a substantial impact on the schools that were not able to be handled by the capacity. MCPS did provide a comment that their desire is that bus stops are no more than 1/10 of a mile from the home of an elementary age student and 1/20th of a mile from a secondary student's home. And they extrapolated that based on the concept plan that was provided, the bus stop was approximately 1/18th of a mile from the furthest home in the development. So they asked that the developer consider the addition of a second bus stop near Cross Creek Drive. I will note that in conversations with the deputy superintendent, school buses do not travel on privately maintained roads, so we would be relying on students getting on buses on the Houchins bus stops. The comprehensive plan defines this area as urban expansion. This is the preferred area where we want to see development outside the two towns and the unincorporated areas of the county. These areas are served by public utilities and have sufficient infrastructure to support these developments. These are your planning and land use goals that are met by the application. Again, we see that the development is complementary with what we're seeing within corporate limits. The public water and sewer exists, and then the mixture of housing types is also supported through the comprehensive plan. In our analysis, we determined that the application does qualify for rezoning with proffered conditions by both the comp plan and county code. It is within an urban expansion area, provides a variety of housing types, and we will note that the residential development is more compatible with the surrounding land uses than the existing M1 zoning, which has a variety of industrial uses that could be placed by right on the property. The development would increase traffic along Houchins Road, and staff does understand the concerns of the existing conditions of the intersection. We will note that the applicant did work to address those concerns by recommending improvements that were not reviewed and accepted by the town. A decrease in the number of units from 199 townhomes to 108 mixed types of housing does further reduce the traffic impacts. Any voluntary proffers related to intersection improvements could be accepted but are not enforceable by the county. The applicant has identified a trail network, but no additional recreational amenities have been shown at this time. Per county code, a minimum of 30% of the common open space should be dedicated to active recreation. And you see some requirements there, as well as the amount of funding that should be dedicated to active recreation facilities. The impacts to the adjacent landowners will be mitigated by preserving some of that existing vegetation along the northern property line and by the addition of additional landscaping. So as a result, through our analysis, staff does recommend approval of the rezoning request with the following proffered conditions. The property shall be developed in general conformance with one of or a mixture of the submitted concept plans submitted on November 1st, 2023 and revised December 21st, 2023. The maximum number of units, 88 single-family detached homes, 44 duplexes or some combination of duplexes and single-family detached, not exceeding 88 dwellings, and a maximum of 20 single-family residential attached units. Those are the townhomes. The property shall be served by Town of Christiansburg Public Water and Montgomery County Public Service Authority Sanitary Sewer. A property management company and/or homeowners association shall maintain all community-owned grounds, included but not limited to the landscaped areas, recreational areas, parking and paved areas, sidewalks, and stormwater management areas. A bus shelter shall be a minimum of 5 by 10 in size, constructed of a durable, architecturally sound material that will withstand continual exposure to the elements along Houchins Road. Specific locations, style, and size shall be determined in conjunction with the final site plan and coordinated with MCPS staff. Coordination with VDOT will be required to provide suitable bus access to the shelter. And exterior lighting, each single-family detached home lot and each dwelling unit of a two-family dwelling shall have a low-level 8-foot maximum height front yard light for security purposes. There shall be no street lighting in front of single-family and two-family homes. In units of townhouse groupings shall have a low-level 8 feet maximum height yard light. There shall be no street lighting in front of townhouses. Adjoining property owners were notified in accordance with code. Public hearing signs were placed on the property because we had two separate parcels. There were two signs placed. Legal ads were run in the News Messenger. We did receive one piece of correspondence that was included in your packet from a resident in the Walnut Creek subdivision, but we also may receive additional comments during the public hearing this evening. And with that, I will take any questions that you have for staff.
Mr. Chair.
Please. Yes.
Mr. Sanders, I know that Dr. Whitaker's second paragraph is not complete, so it makes no sense whatsoever, but and
Apologize for that.
Everyone would like to take a look at that.
So I did, I pulled that into the slide. So it was the
Okay.
comment about the distance. There we go. It was the comment about the distance from the furthest residential structure.
Okay, that, my reference is the hard copy, paragraph 2, which reads in part, Montgomery County Public Schools strives to students which are no more than, and then adding an add, the Cross Creek Drive and so forth. So I'd like to see that language cleaned up. And I'm not sure I understand why secondary students could only walk half as far as elementary students. But I guess that's not our purview.
So this was, so the slide content was based on a meeting that Ms. Hopkins and I had with Ms. Whitaker, and then she provided the written comments. So there could have been, between the communication there might have been, but this was the numbers that she gave us in that meeting.
I'd like clarification on that as
We
well.
can get that for you, sir.
My only other concern is Houchins Road without the emergency connection, nor the connection with Walnut Creek, neither of which is reality presently. Do I understand?
That is correct. They've not been constructed at this
So
time.
Houchins Road becomes Thomas Lane if the continued development utilizes only that one road. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Are there sidewalks with the development for the students to walk to the Houchins Road bus stop?
Yes, there is a sidewalk that's proposed along Houchins Road. It sort of meanders. Let me go back to the other
Okay,
larger
sorry,
concept
I couldn't
plan.
tell.
I don't know if it's going to be able to be seen on this one. You can sort of see it here. It sort of meanders.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Justin, I would like to ask you a question about the density per acre. So there's 26 acres, 26.71 acres, and there's how many units?
So what you're seeing on the concept plan, I believe it's 75 units are being shown, and then there's 15 townhomes currently being shown. Again, based on site conditions when they're doing the site work and then the market conditions, it's going to fluctuate within that range. The density calculation, I will defer to Mr. Neal. He can talk a little bit about what that density looks like per acre.
So the reason I would like to know that is the houses that are in the back neighborhood that's already there, they look like they're on like 3-acre lots or maybe more, and this looks like it's compact.
Yes, so what they would be looking at for the single family detached and the duplex units would be a base R3 compact zoning district. Those are smaller lots with different setback requirements than traditional R3. The thought process there is with smaller homes on smaller lots that these were going to be a different type of housing that would be available for folks. So thinking of starter homes, when you're thinking about larger lots and larger homes, those are going to be more affordable or less affordable homes than these. So I think that was part of the thought process of the developer, as they've mentioned it to us, was that these were going to be folks that are just getting started in the market, buying their first home. They are smaller homes that they could eventually move up to larger homes in the future. The other thought process, I believe, and I will have Mr. Neal clarify this, having that variety of housing types, we saw this with other developments that you've reviewed recently. The idea is that maybe someone would come in starting in a townhome, then they would maybe move up to a duplex and then maybe a single family detached home, staying in the same neighborhood but being able to grow within the subdivision.
The density is just what concerns me. I agree with the affordable housing concept, but the lot doesn't have to be, the house could be smaller, but the lot doesn't have to necessarily be so small with them side by side like this. That concerns me as far as the density and then the number of families that would be living in such as 26 acres of land. So that's my concern on this concept here. So I looked back at the ordinance amending the zoning back in 2006, and originally when it was approved, it looked like the density was, the maximum density of no more than 3.1 per acre was permitted back, and what was provided to us here. Now it's way less than that on.
So that was in the Walnut Creek subdivision that you're referring to, I believe.
Yes, on what was back here in the back when the 60 acres was originally approved back in 2006. So it looks like the intent then was to develop that land, and now here we are.
So I will also say it was different developers. So the Walnut Creek subdivision was developed by a different developer who had different goals, I believe, at the time, and 20 years or so has passed. So
it just seems like they're trying to squeeze in as much as they can in the smallest amount of space, and not really. It's probably the best interest of the developer, but as a homeowner trying to find a home, a first-time home, and it being so compact, I would not think that would be as appealing.
And we do have Mr. Neal and Mr. Connor here from Shaw. They can maybe lend a little bit more background to maybe why that decision was made for you when they come up.
And I know the county's looking at affordability housing options, or trying to have affordable housing here, but is this what is trending in the county to have this close density?
So I will say that these are not subsidized units and not necessarily affordable housing. They are more affordable based on the size of the lot and the size of the structure. So they're similar terminology, but distinct, different things. But Bree can speak more to the county's affordable housing strategy since she sits on those task force.
So I was going to address the question more about, is this the way development is moving? Across the country, I can say yes. So across the country, what people are looking for are the more compact design options that have compact housing and they have more open space around them. They also offer more of the community, the traditional neighborhood design type feel. And that's what the PUD Res district tends to give us. In addition, we also have a traditional neighborhood design district that can be requested, but the acreage minimum for that is pretty high. So most people go with the PUD Res just based on the minimum acreage requirement. But across the nation, yes, that more compact development is what folks are going toward, because it does create a more affordable housing option than going to, the larger the lot, then the larger the lot cost. So you tend, that drives the price up automatically. Plus, with the amount of infrastructure that is required for developments like this, they do need the more units so they can subsidize what they are having to put into the development and still offer the housing at an affordable price. And I'm sure Mr. Connor or Mr. Neal can speak to that and tell you how that works. They have built a variety of housing. This is very similar in concept to the Midway development that was built between Shawsville and Salem. I do not believe you were on the commission then, but it's right off of Route 11 460. And so this is kind of a similar concept, and Mr. Connor can probably speak to how well that has went over. But it is also that compact development type option.
Is it different than what's behind, over there where the farmhouse is? All those houses back there that are like where the pumpkin patch used to be? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's in the town, I've not seen the plans. So I know there's townhouses back there. I know there's single family. I do not know what the lot sizes are.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't think that was a Shaw development. So I'm not, it was a Shaw development. So Kevin can probably speak to some of that as well.
It's just the aesthetic piece of it that concerns me too. Thank you.
Justin, when we went there for a site visit, it's been a couple months.
Yes, sir.
It seemed like what was proposed at that time was 199 units.
199, all townhouses.
All townhouses. And it seemed like we'd made a comment that we sure would like to see some single family, and so now it looks like they've reduced it from 199 townhouses to 108 units. So that.
That's correct. So the number of townhouse maximum is 20, and then 88 of a mixture of single family, detached, and duplexes.
And then I will mention that in the Kensington Harkrader development, the developer there doing some houses on smaller lots, sale price $350. Round Meadow, larger lots, $575 to $725. So you can see the difference in the price. Large lots, affordable is smaller lots, smaller houses. Any other comments for staff?
Mr. Neal has a presentation here as well, so I'll defer to him.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, one question for Justin before you
Yes, sir.
turn it over. So the comment from the school board came in after the application. Is that why the second bus shelter is not shown?
Yes, so our process is when we receive the application, we send that out to the development review team. The school system is part of that team. We did not receive we did not have a chance to meet with Dr. Whitaker until last week. She took that back to their transportation unit that actually manages the bus routes, and that's when we received the comment late Friday afternoon on the second bus stop after the developer had submitted the application. And then we got the written comments from her earlier today to include in your packet this evening.
the current conditions that are proposed by staff is just for the single?
So the way that that proffer that was given to us by the developer, it noted the location of the bus stop, the architectural style of the bus stop, the size, but there also was that provision there that the location or locations would be coordinated with MCPS as part of that proffer. And so as part of our site plan review, if approved, MCPS would have input in that process and would be able to work with the county on identifying if a second stop was going to be added if the developer was willing to do so.
So does it say location or locations?
It said locations. Let me go back to that slide.
And I'll also add, Mr. Kroll, it could be that once they talk to the school system during site plan review, the schools say, well, instead of having 2 stops, can you put one in the middle? So that might be a way to fix their distance requirements and provide just the 1 stop. But the school system was very clear when Justin and I met with them that it is hard for them to say this is where we want a bus stop because they don't know where the kids are. So you don't know where the kids are until they've actually moved in. And then that can also change. So it can change every year. So you might have a bus stop at location A and all the kids are located at location B, which is way too far away, but you don't have a bus stop there. So they have asked for some flexibility in helping us determine where those locations should be. And I believe this proffer would cover us if we needed an additional stop or if we needed to relocate the stop that they've shown to another spot.
So 2 provisions within the proffers. We use this language of general conformance. We either use substantial conformance or general conformance. The general conformance gives us a little bit of flexibility. If that bus stop were to move or an additional one was to be added, we are covered by that general language. And then the proffer specifically related to the bus shelter just establishes those minimums. So again, it's a minimum of 5x10, constructive of durable material. And then further on in the proffer, it talks to the specifics of the style, the locations, the size. That would be determined at site plan review. So I do believe that the proffer gives us some flexibility to be able to address the school system's concerns.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is John Neal. I'm an engineer with Foresight Design. I appreciate your time this evening. As I said previously, Justin Breed put together a pretty comprehensive staff report, and we certainly appreciate their recommendation for approval. I do have a very brief presentation and a few points that I want to hit specifically to tell you about. One of the things to keep in mind is that the existing zoning on the site, there's 5.57 acres that's conservation. And that is where, if you'll recall, back probably over a year ago, I think, or right at it, part of the town's property was shifted into the county. So we moved the town, and typically this is not what happens. Typically the town boundaries grow. In this instance, we shifted the town boundary further and tightened up the town boundary and added to the county property. So that came in as conservation. But the rest of the property, the 21 odd acres, is zoned manufacturing and industrial. And that was done at some point in the past. We've got the Christiansburg Industrial Park that is generally adjacent to us on Houchins Road, and there is a business that comes out onto Houchins Road, has an entrance onto Houchins Road as well as into the industrial park. There is a critical need for housing stock within the county. People like to live here, and we want to provide them that opportunity. We are very proximate to the interstate, 81 and 460, and existing utilities. When you are looking at places to go and places to put housing, one of the things you want to put it at is where there's roads and transportation infrastructure and utilities to serve the housing. The PUD Res zoning request, it allows for and kind of promotes a mix of housing types, which is one of the things that we've proposed here. If you'll recall, from the very previous, we had 199 townhomes. We've now mixed that up and added both single family and the allowance for duplexes as well. This is an urban expansion designation is on this property, so it is seen as going to be developed or promoted to be developed in those areas surrounding the towns. And there is a decent lack of available new single-family homes in the Christiansburg area. I know, like Mr. Rice mentioned, the Meadows, as those are homes in the $600,000 plus range. We're not targeting that at all. And we do think that we complement the adjacent Walnut Creek neighborhood. Here's kind of the comprehensive plan, the future land use. As you can see, it's that urban expansion, and that wraps all the way around the backside of the town of Christiansburg. One of the things someone asked about connections, at some point in the future, and I have no idea when it will be, but at some point in the future, and the Walnut Creek neighborhood has at least two. I think there's three, but there's two that are probably actually practical. The third one probably is not practical from an engineering design standpoint. That will eventually extend those streets and connect over to probably Simmons Road or where Hubble Lighting is in those areas, and back to Roanoke Street. So you'll start to have a little bit more of a network. Mr. Miller, your comment about Thomas Lane, like I said, I certainly, Thomas Lane for the longest time had no outlet and no hope of any outlet. When we were fortunate enough in 2005 to design the Walnut Creek neighborhood, I stood here before the Planning Commission Board of Supervisors in 2000, it's probably 2004 actually, and went through the process with that. And one of the things that we did was we set up for future connections. Obviously, we didn't control, and no one controlled the rest of that property, but it is set up to be extended and create more of a network for the transportation and traffic there. The zoning map, I mentioned the manufacturing, the M1 there. Wanted to show you our conceptual layout, and there's two conceptual layouts in your package, and the reason we did that is to show and illustrate we are going to hold and have those townhomes up along this area where the the town of Christiansburg's zoning and industrial is right here. And then these would be single family or the opportunity for duplexes and or a mix of duplexes and single family. But I think, Ms. Simpkins, to your point about the density, we have set caps at those at a maximum of 80, I had it here. I apologize.
20, 88, and 20.
88. I get the 88 and the 20. 88 single family, or the potential if we were to do duplexes, it'd be 44 duplexes and 20 townhomes. We don't show that many. I don't imagine that we will get to that point. But one of the things we were doing is trying to set up what the absolute maximum would be. And we have the architectural example, but one of the things I want to point out is we have a community neighborhood in what's called Point Pleasant in Roanoke County that's right now is under construction. As we speak, those houses are under construction, and one of the houses are modeled after those homes and some of the ones that we've seen. So you can see some of the homes in that neighborhood that are actually under construction right now. The proposed proffers general conformance with the concept plan, a mix of single-family duplex and the townhomes up on the one side of the property, maximum of 88 single-family and 20 townhomes, would be managed by an HOA overall, maintaining that green space, open space. We have about just under 9 acres of green space that we're proposing, and the bus shelter. Mr. Crowe, we'd certainly work with the county and provide in the school system. If we need one or two or one in the middle, we're happy to do whatever's necessary. We'd submit to this before we heard back from the school system. So I do want to hit on just a couple of things. One, we appreciate that we earned the staff's recommendation for approval. I think that's good. We held our own neighborhood meeting. We invited the Walnut Creek neighborhood back in the spring of 2023 when we were first developing the plan, and this was when we had 199 townhomes. We invited the Walnut Creek neighborhood out. I think we had maybe 30 to 40 people come out and presented the plan and discussed things with them. One of their biggest concerns was the intersection of Houchins Road and Roanoke Street. So we did a full-blown traffic impact analysis, submitted it to VDOT, and I think you should have in your packet some of those back and forth of those final comments when we're working with VDOT after the TIA was determined not to be required. But we did do a full-blown TIA. It indicates that the level of service at Houchins and Roanoke is an F right now. We wouldn't make that substantially worse if we do increase the delay. Any number of extra cars will, at those peak hours, during those peak times, will increase the delay. There's no doubt about it. That would happen, and we think our traffic is much more compatible with Houchins Road and the Walnut Creek neighborhood than a manufacturing use on the site, with trucks or dump trucks or whatever they would be. No problem adding the bus stop. Like I said, in 2005, we did the Walnut Creek neighborhood. That is probably one of the neighborhoods that I'm most proud of to have been involved in. We have done Midway Estates that Bree mentioned in Elliston, Shawsville. That has been very popular and is similar size homes. I think those people have enjoyed that. Cambria Crossing, you mentioned Miss Simpkins at the Pumpkin Patch. We did Cambria Crossing. I think that's been a desirable neighborhood. The Village at Toms Creek, Countryside Landing in Pulaski, Colonial Green in Roanoke, and the Preserve at Walnut Springs out on Price's Fort. We see this as being a neighborhood where people will want to live close to the town, close to infrastructure and amenities. Mr. Miller, I assure you, the kids will not have to walk uphill both ways to wherever we put the bus stop. I promise you that. And last but not least, we absolutely tried to work with the town of Christiansburg, and we're proposing to go ahead and make those improvements to that intersection. I think it's in the staff report, and you've seen town of Christiansburg decided not to allow us to do that. They wanted to finish their study, and they're looking at the bigger picture, not just the Houchins intersection, but the entire Roanoke Street corridor, and potentially they will be proposing various changes and improvements to that corridor. But be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Neal,
Yes, sir.
I have several questions. On your concept layout, and I understand it is a concept, but it looked like you were clear cutting a whole lot of mature trees and then replanting. Is that your?
Yes, sir. We will certainly be clearing trees for the development, for the majority of the development. What you don't see on this plan is kind of off to the right and down this way. We'll certainly preserve as many of those existing and try not to cut them down if we can. But we'll certainly be adding back a substantial number of trees as well. And I think this, and Kevin might be able to clarify specifically, I think back in the 50s and 60s, this was agricultural farmland. And so those trees have kind of come about since then. But yes, to answer your question, yes, sir.
I've just kind of always had a problem with the logic of cutting it down and replanting. But
We certainly don't want to cut down any we don't have to. I'd much rather them stay there, but.
That's not the ugly subject I want to bring up.
Okay.
HOA is where you're headed. So is there a property management company that's going to handle the escrows for the roadways and maintenance?
Well, so I would defer to Shaw on the specifics of that. They would work with and manage the HOA until some point that the residents take that over. And then it would be up to the residents or the HOA itself, all the residents of the community.
Set up their own escrows, that sort of thing.
To decide whether they want to work with one of the property management companies around, or they can manage it themselves, actually, if they wanted to.
Do you have a thought in mind on what the HOA fee is going to be?
No, sir. No, sir.
Is there going to be parking on the street on McLean and Gruber?
No, sir. We would have off-street parking.
And how many visitor spots have you got?
So all of the residences would be garages, and they would have their driveway in front of that. So there'd be visitor parking in their driveway. And then we also do have parking on either end, as you can see. here.
So you've
and
got
here.
about 20 spots
Something like that, yes, sir.
or that
Slightly
many
more.
units, plus 2 in front.
Right, yes, sir.
From personal agony, I would suggest that you think about a little more visitor parking.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to be able to even have a small family reunion
Mm-hmm.
at somebody's house with that limited parking, particularly if you don't allow street parking.
Sure. Understood.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Any more comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Rice, I do have a question for Mr. Neal. On the concept plan where you're showing the trail going across the backyards of the rows of structures there, the lot lines are in the center and divided basically in half there. So are those properties, do the homeowners actually own the lots, or is that part of the open space and common area?
So,
And I guess my follow-up question on that is, will the homeowners be able to install fences along their back property lines?
so to answer your first question, typically it's both. So the homeowner, the resident, will own the entire lot to those property lines. But there will be an easement over that for the open space and the trail going down between the lots. And what we've seen a lot of times, typically, and I'm not saying that that's specifically for this one, is the HOA maintains, in a lot of neighborhoods we've done this on that are compact in nature, the HOA maintains everyone's yards. And so there are prohibitions towards completely fencing it in and things like that, and you have to have certain openings. They can get permission to do a fence, but it goes through a process.
Okay, so I guess, could we assume that that space between the two rows of structures is going to be available for the community to use, even though it's crossing individual lot lines?
There will definitely be a substantial width down there that would be available for the community to use. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further? Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Thank you all.
Did the applicant want to say something?
Good evening, Planning Commission. Kevin Connor with Shaw Development. Just want to fill in a few gaps that Mr. Neal left off and didn't give me credit for. So 2005 Cambria Crossing, the pumpkin patch. I was the designer on that. The lots that back up to the existing neighborhood was 80 feet wide. All others are 50 feet wide. These are drawn at 50 feet wide, so it's comparable size to the Cambria Crossing development. As well, in 2005, Walnut Creek, we were before you for that. John's going to take all the credit, but this guy was a part of it as well in my consultant life. The bus stop locations. Walnut Springs and Blacksburg has 4 bus stop locations shown. We were to consult with the school board or the school administration to determine the final location of them. Probably a month ago, I went through that process. I was told by the transportation guys, y'all put them where you think's best. So we put them where we thought was best. He said, you put them here, we may need them here. Put them here, we may need them there. So we did the best we could on that one, but certainly we'll work with them again. But that was kind of the process I went through in a real world today situation. And Ms. Simpkins, you mentioned affordability and desirability, small lots and homes like that. Just to put a real world number on this, overall to develop this property is about $6 million. That equates to about $70,000 a lot. And that's just to develop the lot. That's not to build the home or anything. If I take every other house out of there, I'm still building the same amount of water, the same amount of sewer, the same amount of roads. So that lot goes from 70,000 to 140,000. So yes, the more we get, the more the cost stays down. So I just want to put real numbers to that today. I cannot develop a lot for, I think my cheapest one to date is about $68,000. I just did one in Pulaski County that I'm working on. I'm at $85,000 just to develop the lot. So those are real numbers today. So just wanted to put that out there to the commission. Thank you.
Can I ask how big that lot is for $85,000?
Exact same as this, 50 feet by 125.
Okay, 2/10 of an acre. Okay, thank you.
And I'll just make a commentary. The Midway development is very nice. And I'm assuming that those homes sold very, very quickly and it was very well done. And I think,
If we had more, they would be sold. I don't use the term a whole lot, but I'll use the term on this development as cute. Doesn't come out of my mouth often, but it was a cute development. So. No, I didn't have anything to do with the architecture of that one. Yes, sir, Mr. Miller.
Jefferson.
So a joke yes, sir. A joke we used to have in my former consultant life was the only taste that engineers have is in their mouth. And I think the engineers took their liberty to put a little taste of this one. It may do that. We may do it straight. Topography may dictate a few things differently. I'm not going to say no thought was put to it, but we were just showing that we're going to put a sidewalk there for people to use. Final design, it may just be a big, long serpentine, or it could be straight.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Any further questions?
And that looks, the scale of this drawing, that looks really, really sharp, but that's about 100 feet in between each segment. So it's, it's a decent little distance.
Beautiful.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to open up for public hearing, and I do have one person signed up, Ms. Meredith Hutton. And I'll read, each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the commission on this topic. A yellow light on the speaker's lectern will illuminate when 1 minute remains. When a red light illuminates, the speaker's time has expired, and all comments should be addressed to the commission.
Hi, I'm Meredith Hutton, and I am a resident of Walnut Creek. And I just want to thank Foresight Design because, like he said, they did hold a meeting, and they've been very informative about the process, and I know that they don't have to do that. I know that it's been mentioned that one of the biggest concerns is the intersection at Houchins and Roanoke Street, and that's what I just want to bring to your attention. I'm not in opposition of this development. I actually think myself and my other neighbors actually like this idea better with residential single-family dwellings than the 199 townhomes. However, there are other developments that have been brought before you, one being the RV park on Brammer Street that I think you guys are going to have to make a decision on, as well as we've heard that there will be about 150 townhomes also built in our development. Land has been cleared, but that's been sitting there for a number of years. So while the impact on traffic because of this development does not seem to be greater, these other developments are coming in and it is going to impact that. And I wanted to share with you because the thing is we don't feel very hopeful because it is the town's jurisdiction. And I wanted to share with you an encounter that we've had with the town of Christiansburg recently. This past year, the town of Christiansburg voted to increase our water rates from 150% to 200%, which means we now pay $20 for every 10,000 gallons of water. My water bill, just water, is $75. My other neighbors are $125, and we pay separately for sewage and for trash pickup. When a neighbor contacted a member of the town council, he said, well, maybe you should just get your water from the county. Take it up with the county. When I contacted an administrator with the town of Christiansburg, asking if they had done a study or how they came up with this number, he said, no, but we do know it costs more to manage those lines and transportation. The development was built in 2006. I'm sure our lines are not old and rusty and in need of a lot of management, and my house is less than a mile from town lines. So those responses seem inadequate and unthoughtful for the residents of Walnut Creek, which makes me wonder how thoughtful are they going to be about the traffic considerations coming in and out of Houchins, with Houchins being the only entry and exit. And I know they've also had that there are other exits and entries that could happen, but that's also contingent on the town. So I'm not upset with the development. I actually think it's a good plan. I just want you to be aware of the concerns of the residents and how we don't have much hope in the town of Christiansburg to consider us. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Others?
Hello.
Hello.
My name's Amanda Yoder. I'm also a resident in Walnut Creek, and I just wanted to also voice a concern over the traffic. I've had a lot of near misses there. They just built the sheets, and then there's the 81 where you get on. So turning left there is very, very dangerous. Even turning into like Hutchins is very dangerous. So I'm also not really opposed to the development. It's just something has to be done about the traffic there. I live towards the back of the neighborhood as well, and if you only have one entrance and exit and then you build, 100 other residences, right, it's enough now because we have a lot of construction vehicles that come up and down that road. I did there was a traffic report that was sent out, but I looked through some of that data, and as a statistician, I had some problems with the way the data was collected. It was collected over, it seemed like around Thanksgiving week, which is not a representative sample of doing traffic in the neighborhood, along with some other concerns with the data. So I'm not sure if VDOT did that or who did that. But it's definitely not representative. I go to work every day, it's just very dangerous. So that's just my main concern. Some of my other concerns are, more around environmental. I moved from Oak Tree, if you guys are familiar with that development, because I don't want to live, around townhomes. I wanted a more quiet setting with trees. And so not, like I said, necessarily opposed to it, but, I wanted more of a quiet area to live, which is why Walnut Creek was, so beautiful to me when we chose to live there. So I think that's all I have. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, can we get your address, please, for the minutes?
1332 Walnut Ridge Road.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address the commission? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and open up to discussion amongst the commissioners.
I have a question for Justin regarding the traffic. What is it you alluded to or said about a future look at that area I can't remember what you said,
So the reference that I made was that when Walnut Creek was developed, there were stub streets that were created to the property boundary that would allow future interparcel connection if other parcels were to be developed. And that's what Mr. Neal was alluding to when he mentioned the connection to Simmons Road. There are parcels that could be developed and linked in to provide another access out of the Walnut Creek subdivision. But again, the developer only had to take those substreets to the property line. to provide that connection in the future. There is also an emergency access from Walnut Creek that goes into the Christiansburg Industrial Park. That is a dedicated easement that runs through the property that provides access into the industrial park. But again, that has not yet been constructed either. There's a proffered condition that connection has to be created after a certain number of homes has been constructed. And they've just not reached that threshold yet with the townhouses not being constructed.
I thought you also mentioned something about the corridor, that
Oh, you're mentioning the corridor study that the town is doing?
in that part of the
Yes, so
traffic.
the corridor study that I referenced is an Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment study that's being done by the town of Christiansburg. That's along the entire Roanoke Street corridor. So that's looking at all of the intersections and all of the travel lanes along Roanoke Street. Houchins Road's intersection being one of those that would be reviewed. I will mention with those studies, that study is still probably 6 months away from completion. They'll get a list of recommendations. That has no funding attached to it, so the town then has to prioritize those improvements, go for funding, and I can tell you from experience that even once funding is applied for and awarded, you're still 6 to 10 years out for construction on those improvements. So we're talking about a pretty far in the future improvement that could be made based on that study.
I know the traffic is really heavy on that road. When I started at Tech in the early 80s, there was a Western Sizzlin built down there, and it was kind of like on its own. And since then, I mean, I know that's a long time ago, but the traffic has just, and the businesses have just increased. I know there's a Dunkin' Donuts going in where Pizza Hut used to be, but I agree that area has lots of close calls and actually probably some really bad routes.
Right, and the
too.
solutions there, it's going to be collaborative. You know, the town of Christiansburg maintains and designs their own roads and improvements. In the county, we have VDOT that manages our roads, so there's a collaboration that has to happen there. With the Houchins Road intersection particularly, there's additional challenges because of the proximity to the exit ramps for the interstate. I know there's been discussion at one point about the desire to signalize that intersection. Again, because of the proximity to the exit ramp, that's really not feasible. It's going to actually make it more unsafe if it were to be done. So again, that collaboration is going to have to continue between the jurisdictions and VDOT for any improvements that are done.
Thank you.
You know, I grew up in, or lived in Windmill Hills back in the 80s. And so Cambria Street, right there by the rec center and the farmhouse restaurant, that was the only entrance. Windmill Hills and Diamond Point, all of that was developed as one entrance for 20 years or so. And then they extended the roads over to over by the high school and then over to Kensington and so now there's 3 ways out. But you know, for 20 years it was just a one road. But that's sort of the way the planning works. We build subdivisions with outlets, and then the next person continues, and so it's just sort of the way roads get built. Any other comments or questions?
I guess this is a question that I would ask staff. How do we improve or begin the mechanism for collaboration between a town and a county when you have a troublesome spot? Anyone have an answer for that?
So I think that collaboration has already started. Just due to this project itself, we have had several meetings with town staff about potential improvements and things that can be done at that intersection. With their OIP study that they currently have going, it will give them a list, you could say, of improvements that they can request funding for. At the time they go to submit those applications to VDOT, they can be submitted, some of them through the MPO, which is a regional effort, and that, of course, is supported by all the localities within the MPO. The other thing is if they submit them individually, we, as the county, can always elect to give a resolution of support from the Board of Supervisors to accompany their application, so hopefully that will get them funded to have those improvements done through VDOT. It's the same process we go through for SmartScale applications through the county, so it is a competitive process. Those are some ways. Asking for their input is the first thing, and I feel like we have done that. We understand that they want to complete this study and look at what other improvement options there are. I think they are understanding that a major improvement like an R-cut or something like that is not financially feasible for one developer to contribute, that it would take multiple entities to be able to complete something like that. So I think they are understanding to that point. I think it's just continued discussions, and as applications come through, we try to support each other. The county's hands are kind of tied with it being in the town of Christiansburg. If the applicant wants to proffer a condition that, says upon town approval, this improvement will be installed, the county can accept that. However, we cannot enforce that they actually make that improvement because the town may not want that. And so it would be solely up to the town of Christiansburg at that point. Thank you.
Concerns, questions? It strikes me that it is in the urban expansion area that we determined that this is where we want growth to be. And it is where the road networks are and water and sewer. And we definitely have a shortage of homes, so it's a need.
I'll make a motion to approve with the recommended proffers or conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Mr. Linkus?
Okay, Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Sharp Robinson.
Yes.
Ms. Simpkins.
Yes.
Mr. Waltz.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Secretary votes yes. Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Rice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Could I take the liberty to confirm on our first public hearing, we had a motion, that you made the motion and you seconded it. But there were two conditions. Did you want to include those two conditions with that motion? And was your second, okay. Are we okay with that, or do we need to have another vote?
I think it was approved, so, condition, it was approved,
With-
as recommended by staff.
Recommended by staff.
Right.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we have a regular public address that anyone, if anyone from the audience would like to address the commission on any topic, you're sure welcome to come forward. And seeing no one, we will close the public address portion. And we have no old business on the agenda. So then we move into new business. And the new business consists of appointments to the liaison members. member appointments. The Blacksburg Planning Commission, Andrea, are you willing to continue? No, we're just, and then the Chrisburg Planning Commission, I talked to Mr. Woods. You're fine with that, Mr. Woods? Radford Planning Commission, Ms. Simpkins, are you willing to continue?
Yes.
Thank you. And the Tourism Council, Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then Parks and Recreation, we have Mr. Workman. Are you okay
Sure.
with continuing
Yeah.
with that? Okay. And then, of course, I think that's it. Yep. And then we will move into liaison reports. Mr. King, would you like to give a report from the Board of Supervisors or the PSA? Recap?
Well, we just had our reorganization for both of them, so I was appointed chair of the PSA, and Derek, the new board member, was appointed vice chair of PSA, and Monday night we had our election for Board of Supervisors, and Mary Biggs was appointed chair, and Steve was appointed vice chair, and we moved forward from there. We're gonna start big next meeting.
Sounds good, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And so Blacksburg Planning Commission. Second,
The second.
We have the video option for everybody because you can watch it later on. What they had coming up is they're discussing height discussions for buildings within downtown Blacksburg. They delayed zoning 3 times now for a commercial zoning district down in Country Club. So that was postponed from November to December, from January to February now. And also what's coming up is the rugby field that is behind the Margaret Beeks Elementary is up for discussion for senior housing, and that will be up and coming. So good things to come, big discussions in Blacksburg.
thank you. Thank you very much. And the Radford Planning Commission report from Ms. Simpkins?
I received notice on the same day of the meeting that it was canceled, so they didn't meet.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, I skipped over the Chrisburg Planning Commission, and I don't think they've had a meeting since our last time. So. And then Tourism Council, Mr. Miller, no meeting, okay. And the Parks and Rec with Mr. Workman?
No meeting, we'll meet tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And the Planning Director's report, Ms. Hopkins.
Yes, so I do have a few things. Since our last meeting, I have attended a meeting with the county administration with Dr. Smoot. He is our CTB member for VDOT, and we talked about some upcoming applications that we're going to be submitting for transportation. We discussed the current HSIP application that VDOT has submitted on our behalf for improvements on the entire corridor of Route 8 with the exception of the village, basically. So from the edge of the village to the town line and from the edge of the village to the Floyd County line, we discussed that for him. He is understanding of what we are trying to accomplish and was very supportive. We are also going to keep him up to date on any applications we decide to submit for the upgoing round of Smart Scale. We talked to him preliminarily about what we're thinking about, and he was very supportive in both of those. And that would be the intersection of Merrimack Road is what we're currently looking at, Merrimack and Price's Fork. And then we were talking about some other things that were coming out of the OIPI study we had for Route 114. So he is very supportive of all those. Also related to transportation, Justin attended in my absence on Monday a discussion with Blacksburg Transit. They are doing their new master plan, and they did hear some of our comments and have included those in their plan. They, short term, are looking to address some public transit needs in what we call the mid-county portion, which is the portion of between the town of Christiansburg and the town of Blacksburg, beginning some regular routes through that area in the short term. So that's less than 10 years. They're looking at providing some transportation in that area. Long term, they're looking at providing service to the Prices Fork Village, and that would be to Thomas Lane and to Merrimack Road to connect some of those folks in and the Warm Hearth folks, get them over to medical needs, that type of thing. And then also along the Bellevue Route 114 corridor, starting to begin some public service. Now, long-term means greater than 10 years. That doesn't mean it will be 10 years before we start providing. It means it is in their plans, so we can start to look at funding sources and things like that. As you know, funding sources for transportation don't happen overnight. So the reality is that it may take 10 years, but hopefully it'll at least give us the foundation we need to start looking at providing service to those areas. It is a goal in our own transportation plan, and now that it's a goal in their plan as well, that just gives us more justification when we go to apply for funding. Comprehensive plan update, we had a meeting today, and we are very close to beginning contract negotiations with a firm. So we have selected someone, and by our next meeting, we should be able to tell you that we do have a consultant and giving you information on when our kickoff meeting will be. Solar will be presented in work session to the board on the 22nd. Justin will be presenting that for us. I'm assuming I will probably not be in attendance, but he will be representing us well. With that, we currently, knock on wood, have not received any new applications to bring before you in February. And since we were not able to give you your normal December or November meeting off, we were thinking of not holding a meeting in February, if that is okay with all of you all. We will give you Valentine's Day off, and you can spend it with your significant other. That will make up for pulling you away from them every month. We will reconvene in March, and when we do that, you will be presented with the work program from staff. So that's what we will be working on in February, is finalizing negotiations with the comp plan consultant, scheduling a kickoff meeting, and preparing your work program for the upcoming year. I believe that is all I have.
Maybe we should mention about the
Yes.
real estate.
All financial disclosures are due February 1st. No later than February 1st. You can turn them in ahead of time. You can give them to us. We will give them to county administration for you, or you can take them straight to county administration. However you prefer to do that. I will also add, if you need anything over the next few weeks, just be sure if you're emailing to copy Justin on that. If I am out of the office, he will be acting in my stead again. So I will owe him greatly.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
I think I should be able to make